More than 60 migrants have crossed the channel in 6 boats. 4 vessels were intercepted by the Border Force off the coast of Kent, 2 landing on a beach in Sussex. The Home Office said 37 migrants, including what it called 6 claimed minors, were found in the channel and now were being medically assessed. A further 24 people, including 4 children, were detained by police and handed to Border Force officials after arriving at Winchelsea Beach by boat. Details now from LBC's reporter in the south of England, Nick Codling. Nick.
Nick, the Home Secretary says she will hold talks with her French counterpart after at least 60 migrants reportedly crossed the English Channel in a single day. There are at least 5, if not possibly 6, separate events on the south coast yesterday, starting as early as 2:30 in the morning when Border Force was alerted to a small boat travelling towards the UK coast. A group of 8 men and 1 woman who all said they were Iranian nationals were found and taken to Dover. And just a few hours later at 5 a.m, Border Force called out again with their cutter ship intercepting another small boat of 11 males, including 2 children. And then 2 hours later, 6 men claiming to be from Iran were spotted on another small boat and taken to Dover. Then a 4th sighting, this time at 11:30, where a group of 11 were found, including 4 children. Now, if you're keeping count, that brings us to 37 before midday, but that wasn't it for the south coast. This time at Winchelsea in East Sussex, 2 boats were reportedly sighted, but we still don't have exact details on what's happened. It's been reported that 24 people were detained by authorities there, but what's more, some of them may have landed here and managed to evade police. Sussex police said a group of adults and children were transferred to immigration officials after a boat landed between Dogs Hill and Rye Harbour, but that some of the people, possibly including children, may have left the beach on their arrival, with the force asking anyone who's seen them to call 999 immediately. Now, Border Force and other enforcement agencies have said they're dealing with a number of other incidents, so the actual number of migrants that made the crossing yesterday may be even higher. As I mentioned, the new Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has said she'll meet with her French counterpart to discuss what can be done to stem the near constant attempts of migrants trying to reach our shores. And a Home Office spokeswoman added that Border Force have 3 cutters in the channel and a joint action plan with France, including a coordination centre in Calais, and that they'll continue to monitor what they've called an ongoing situation.
All right, let's come back to the meat of the subject, which is now, and of course by its very nature, you can never put an actual figure on it, but it is believed that more than 900 people, including at least 80 children, have made that crossing of the channel in small boats this year. So what is to be done? Tony Smith, who regularly helps us on this matter, was Director General of the UK Border Force, now Managing Director of Fortinus Global, a border security consultancy. So these people, particularly the youngsters who are now being processed, what does that actually mean? Do they stay here, or how do they satisfy the relevant authorities? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Yes, well, this is getting worse. I'm glad you're keeping this up there, Nick, because the stories seem to be dropping away. This is going on. It's getting worse. I think yesterday was the worst day yet for the Border Force and for immigration enforcement, who have been sucked in to help out with it all. It's becoming an armada now, rather than the odd incident. It was declared a critical incident, wasn't it, a little while ago by the last Home Secretary? So that means
Did we ever get the cutter from Malta in position?
We got them back now, but they're not enough, are they, Nick? I mean, we're going to have a serious look at the Border Force can't really cope with this and also run the ports, particularly with Brexit round the corner. We need to have a look at whether or not we can have a UK border patrol like they've got in America, separate command structure with more resources and, of course, jointly with the French to stop these smugglers. And as you make the point, Nick, returns, we don't send them back, I'm afraid. And that's because of this mishmash of safe third country policies don't work anymore. The 51 Convention doesn't really work. We're seeing this in other borders around the world. So once they're on the seas, once we pick them up and they're brought ashore, then the word gets back very quickly to the smugglers. Look, this is all you've got to do, and you're in. And so we need to look at returns as well, don't we?
Let's talk practically. Cutters, I imagine, I've no idea, but A, they're expensive, B, you don't get them whistled up next week. What about drones or something such as that, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of technology as well, Nick. You're right, that is available. We've talked about this before, and actually that investment is necessary. GPS satellite tracking technology, responses, different vessels on the ground. All of this stuff's available and out there, but we haven't really, because we've got so many other things going on at the border and in enforcement, we haven't really taken this to the extent it needs to be taken. And I think that's going to have to be the next step.
Lastly, do you sense a different tone from you? You mentioned Sajid Javid, who perhaps in this area didn't necessarily cover himself with glory. Do you sense a different tone from Priti Patel?
Yes, I do. I think she's really serious about law and order. I think she wants to get a grip very, very quickly. I detect a lot of activity in the Home Office. We may see more on this, but I think, you need to keep this story up there, Nick, because someone drowned last week, and it hardly even featured on the news. And I said people are going to drown, and more are going to drown. Kids are going to drown. It's really big, isn't it? And I hope you guys keep that story running.
Message received and understood. Tony Smith, thank you. Served as Director General of UK Border Force. You are Managing Director of the Fortinus Global Limited, a border consultancy agency. 10 after 8. Well, let's put it on the side now of these poor souls who try and make the crossing. Steve Valdez-Simmons is Director of Amnesty International, UK's Migrant Rights Programme Director. How is this issue to be tackled? Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's good that our Home Secretary is intending on speaking to the French. The question is, what will she speak to the French about? This issue has come up before. I've spoken to you about it before over quite some time now. Yeah. And the issue really is the UK prepared to share responsibility with France for receiving people and receiving their asylum claims? Or is the UK's position going to continue to be to try and put all the responsibility on France? France has done for many, many years, twice the number of asylum claims as does the UK, hosts twice the population of refugees as does the UK. And that's not sustainable. And although many people find safety in France, very many people also do not. And they find themselves living in squalor, often brutalized by the French police, desperately seeking for any option of travelling to try and find somewhere safe. And if the UK authorities and the French between them will not provide them with the means to get to a safe place and access asylum system, then of course there are people who are far more unscrupulous, smugglers, who will do so, and it will risk lives. And thank goodness it appears that yesterday nobody has lost their life.
Are you in agreement that when, as we heard Mr. Smith, Tony Smith, who was Director General of the UK Border Force, questioning the policy that as they get to the UK they are effectively accepted, do you think they should be sent back to France, these individuals?
Some people are sent back to France, but I do question that because that is a policy which doesn't just happen between the UK and France, happens across Europe, has essentially sought to put all of the responsibility for asylum claims on countries closer to where people travel from and remove countries further away from taking their responsibilities. At the same time, it has said to people trying to find safe places and sometimes trying to find their families who have already reached a safe place, it says to them, the last thing you should do is engage with the authorities because it's not safe to do so. So, of course, it just increases the power of smugglers to try and provide journeys to evade the authorities.
But I think we've explored this before, and I rely on your superior knowledge, but there is a treaty, and I can't remember whether it's Dublin or Lisbon or Slough.
It's Dublin.
It's the Dublin Treaty, which suggests that these folk, as and when they get to Italy or they get to France, that they effectively become the responsibility of the Italians or the French. That just fails, does it?
It does fail, and we have to remember that the Dublin regulations, as they're now called, are agreements between states about where responsibility should lie. They don't impose legal obligations on individuals. They're not requirements about where someone is required to make a claim for asylum.
Do you think they should?
They are responsibilities between states as to who's responsible, and they do tend to place nearly all the responsibility on countries like Greece and Italy and Spain rather than countries like the UK. And that just doesn't work out as sustainable.
Yes. So do you think they should have more clout, lastly, then?
I think that countries across Europe need to come together and realise that the only way to deal with this in a safe and sensible way is for everybody to share responsibility. The UK is going to have to receive its fair share. Other countries further in the sort of north and west are going to have to share responsibility with their southern neighbours. Some of the Eastern European countries are going to have to take greater responsibility. If that were to happen, then there would be less reason for people to turn to smugglers and make these dangerous journeys.
And lastly, and in a sentence, if you would, and I was hoping not to get this issue into the conversation this hour, but I feel I have to, presumably Brexit, Mr. Valdez-Simmons, is going to make this potentially far worse, presumably.
It's hard to tell, but it certainly won't help the UK make any meaningful take any meaningful part in trying to sort these things out, because, of course, the UK will be left out of much of the discussions.
I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. Steve Valdez-Simmons is Director of Amnesty International's UK Migrant Rights Programme.